So I'll start off just by thanking Carly, because Carly has been a great support to me. In regards to just talking generally, my experience was from raising my autistic son, who is 17 now, but then my two daughters, who are 19 and 14, I am struggling a great deal because the support is not out there as much as people think there is. I think talk is cheap because the local authorities are failing a lot of young autistic people, especially in primary school. So right now we've got a lot of mothers who've said, my daughter's just been diagnosed just before COVID. We've not been given her support. So what I want Carly to do is that she can explain a little bit about herself, because we are recording this, so that there's people who didn't come to any of our online support for over the last 3 months, get an understanding that Carly is a specialist, first-hand experience as a mother, as a professional, as a mother, and obviously being late diagnosed, the journey that she went as a young teen mum as well, because my daughter came home at 16, not knowing she was pregnant. I had to deliver my grandson at home. I'm struggling a great deal. My 14-year-old diagnosed between 2017 and 2018. I'm struggling again because what we as parents, when we've been told that we're exaggerating our child's behaviour, especially if the boy that we got a boy child and then get the daughter diagnosed, they always seem to say they're copying their siblings. I think it's wrong, because I'm going through a lot. I'm going to keep it real. I'm feeling quite hurt because I don't know what to do. So sorry.
Vanessa, do you know what? You're amazing, Vanessa, being able to help so many families really struggling when you're struggling yourself. I mean, you're a phenomenal woman. You're so strong. And to be able to keep everything going in the way you have with a toddler in the house as well. I don't know how you do it. You're incredible. And I'm going to set me off now. Oh God.
No, I'm being honest. I'm keeping it real.
Yeah, and Joe, I think actually you've set the tone perfectly for what you're trying to we're trying to achieve today, because it is a case of keeping it real now. You'll go to many conferences, and of course there's an official line that has to be said, but actually sometimes what you need, and actually this happens in autism charities very well, I think, is you just need someone who understands and to not have to feel that you can't say what you want to say. So I think, and it's Friday anyway, so I think actually if we do have that theme of keeping it real, and kind of leaving our professional or our online hats at the door and just speaking together as parents or support or carers, I think actually we're going to get the most out of the hour that way.
Thank you. So I had to say that because I'm struggling. It's not easy, and I don't think people realise having girl children is one thing, but then when you can't ask questions and they keep on looking at your parenting skills, it's quite traumatizing. And I think for me, I've always said to everybody, I do community. I don't just do Black mother. Yes, I am a Black mother, but at the same time, the challenges that I'm having is the generalization, the assumptions that have been made that it's my parenting skills. And when I look back, I mean, I had to do a bit of ranting on a blog yesterday, because when I see my daughter with the baby, it struggles, because I have to look at how I was as a parent when my son was diagnosed. What was I doing wrong? Because he was the middle child. But when I look at her and I look at my grandson, I can see a lot of signs, but we've been told that you're not allowed to label, you've got to just let them get through those stages. But I think the first 5 years is so important. So for any young child out there that have been told to wait, I'm seeing the damages to my daughters, because now I don't know how to manage them. So when it comes to keeping safe, when it comes to social media, what's being portrayed out there, I don't think the government have helped us as it is in general to the autistic community. As much as I feel that I'm doing great things. I feel when it comes to me, I've not been listened to. And I feel that schools have failed a lot of young people. And I say young people because I know that there's a lot of parents who have struggled with their child's sexuality, because I know that a question was asked about trans and bisexual, where the child is asked questions and the parent is turned around and not want to talk about it. So I feel that as regardless if people agree or disagree, I feel that there needs to be room for people to speak, because if they don't speak, these young people will end up going down the mental health path. They may end up taking their life because they were not understood. So yes, I know how it feels to be misunderstood, but I've had to be strong, and I have to thank being part of the National Autistic Society. As much as a lot of people do have struggles with them, that's been my support, because if I didn't be part of the Lambeth Autism Group, I wasn't able to connect with lots of the families, from young to old, black, white, Asian, Muslim. People don't realise the work that we have to do. We're volunteers. I'm a volunteer. But it breaks my heart when somebody comes to me and I can't even help them. And it's not because I don't know, it's because we know the services are not out there. So for me, as I said, I'm struggling, and I'm being open and admitting it, because I'm always smiling. But behind it, I'm really angry. I'm angry for myself because how I've been pushed aside. And I'm angry when there's families telling me that their children be taken away. And when they've been diagnosed with autism, it hurts me, because that could be me. That was me, you know, how they were labeling me. And I've just come to the point I've had enough. I'm sorry, everybody.
No, don't apologise, Vanessa. Do not apologise. It takes such bravery to be able to, you know, to be able to say, you know, me too, that you're not, you know, this, and time and time again, the best volunteers in the world are the ones that walk in the same path. Just don't. I think it's there is absolutely no need to apologise, Vanessa. This is, and also what you've done just by talking there about your own situation is you've validated every single person that's in this webinar, because everybody else looks at the helpers and thinks, oh, you know, they must be doing something right, or, you know, it hasn't been this, you know, couldn't have been that bad for them, all this kind of thing. So by being honest and saying, you know, I'm walking exactly the same path as everyone that you're trying to support at the same time, you've just made everyone else feel so at home.
Okay. So I'll start. When was you diagnosed with autism?
Oh, me? Sorry, I forgot what I was doing then. Just thinking, oh my God, you poor thing, having a really rubbish day. Well, you know, it's never a bad day. It's normally the kind of, and it's normally actually, I think, as women, as mothers, we tend to be able to release that when we're in a safe place. So it's good, isn't it? This group of everyone's making you feel really safe. Oh, I was diagnosed at 32. So it was a long journey to diagnosis. So at 14, I was really struggling with school. I didn't want to attend, constantly bunking off school. And then at the weekends, I would either be out with my friends, normally getting up to things I shouldn't be doing at all, and trying to blend in, trying to mask, trying to survive. And then I would just burn out, and I'd get huge, incredible migraines, and I'd want to, have to stay in my room, no lights on and everything. So my parents took me to see a psychiatrist at 14, and the psychiatrist diagnosed me as lazy, which is ridiculous, because everyone knows how hard we all work in advocacy world. You can't have a lazy mindset. But basically said, you know, to my parents, she just needs a fresh start. So, which is probably the worst thing you could say to somebody that's raising an autistic young woman that doesn't know she's autistic, because he's just like, you know, everything needs to change. So my parents moved house, They moved house from one street to literally the next street. I had a great time, don't get me wrong. I went away with my cousin for 6 weeks abroad, with her family. So it was kind of like, okay, we have 6 weeks out. And I think my mum and dad needed the rest more than, I think it was more of a holiday for mum and dad. And you know, a new school. So I came back from America, was at a new house. And then the day I came back, I went to a new school because they said she needs everything new. She's you know, had some sort of issue or whatever. She's really lazy. Anyway, it was this really weird. So obviously the worst thing you can do for somebody that's autistic is change everything. I can remember coming home from school one day and going to the wrong house, because I went to my old house where I'd lived all my life, and then starting a new school and things. I mean, I laugh about it because I think I have to laugh or cry. Sorry, there's a fly in here and I can't open the window because it would be noisy outside. I tend to use humour to not cry, to be honest. So yeah, that all went a bit tits up really, because you know, after that I ended up in a secondary school. I didn't know anyone, started hanging around probably even in dodgier circles, to put that mildly. I was raised in Bracknell, although I love Bracknell. You know, Bracknell in the 90s was very different to how it is now. And everything really deteriorated. I ended up leaving school at 15, pregnant, homeless, no GCSEs. And then it wasn't until after two of my girls were diagnosed that I started looking into a diagnosis. In my early 20s, I had eating disorders, and I mean, I was really thin. I made a film and I put one of the photos in there. It's quite hard to look at, really. The film's called Epidemic of Knowledge. It's on Amazon, but it's about late adult diagnosis. And but yeah, when both the girls were diagnosed, I went to went to my doctor and said, you know, I think I'm autistic like the girls, and my GP said, oh, we need to put you through the mental health route. And Vanessa, what you're saying about the kind of social services and all that kind of stuff, at that time I was a recently divorced 25-year-old mum with 3 kids, you know, and one of those children was like nearly 10. So you know, and the misunderstandings were just incredible. People, you know, they just didn't get it. I think they just thought I was a bit odd, or I don't know what they thought, because I'd need good social imagination to know that. But they really underestimated me and misunderstood me, and it hurts. It really hurts. And yeah, so we're going to pick down the mental health route, and then I was put on some medication saying I had a social anxiety disorder. The medication didn't work. I didn't need the medication. I don't have a social anxiety disorder. I'm autistic, hence why I'm anxious in social situations, which I can't control very well. And yeah, so I went to see the doctor, the NHS doctor, and he got me to do one of those tick lists. And on the tick list, it was kind of, you know, all of these very straightforward, rigid questions, which I took quite literally. And anyway, it said on that I was very, very likely to be autistic. So when I went in to meet them, the doctor, he asked me about my hobbies. I said, oh, I love acting. I've always enjoyed acting. I did a bit of drama school as a kid. And he said, oh, you couldn't possibly be autistic. You wouldn't be able to act. And he didn't diagnose me. And it's quite funny because now, it was probably like two years ago, I went to do a conference about women that don't get diagnosed the first time they have an autism assessment. And they said, right, what we're going to do is we're going to get a local doctor on, and we're going to get you on, and you're going to talk about how you didn't get diagnosed, and then the doctor's going to talk about why that is. Anyway, so I get on stage to do this talk, and the doctor is the doctor that didn't diagnose me. That was a brilliant day, but we got on quite well, and actually it worked out really well because we were very kind to one another and just
sorry.
Said,
did he say sorry?
Yeah, he did say sorry, and I think he was looking at me thinking, how didn't I know? But actually, in our defense, or in his defense, we get so good at masking that actually I didn't allow myself not to mask in the assessment room. I was kind of fake tanned, 3 lots of eyelashes on. Vanessa remembers my misspent you know, low cut top, boob job everywhere, you know, hair extensions. So he was just thinking, this doesn't look like an autistic person's face. So yeah, it wasn't until later that I went to speak at a National Autistic Society. I think it's 2013-ish. I went to speak at a National Autistic Society conference in Harrogate in front of about 400 professionals, and I was talking about autism and girls, and in the front row was a lady called Judy, and Judy was very nice to me, and she kept, you know, saying, do you want a cup of tea, come and sit and have a chat. So anyway, and it wasn't until dinner that night that Judy gave me her business card, and I realised it was Dr. Judith Gould. I just thought Judy was a really nice volunteer. And she said to me, oh, you might be wanting this, and the penny stood on. I was like, oh, that's nice. And then I watched this documentary about how some basically there's a group of, I think it was monkeys or orangutans or something, and they were given a mirror, and they could kind of just learn to be deceitful because they understood that they were different to the other tribe of orangutans or whatever. And I thought, oh my God, I don't know how to do that, but the orangutans do. So I sent an email to Judy going, I watched this documentary about orangutans. Anyway, so she emailed me back and she said, Carly, I also watched the orangutan documentary. When are you coming in? And she was just incredible. So we filmed the diagnosis. That's again on that little film. I feel like I'm plugging it. I don't get any profit out of it, the producing it, but yeah, we did film that. So I did get diagnosed eventually at 32 at the Lorna Wing Centre in Bromley, and I can't recommend that place enough. It's incredible. But yeah, it was a long journey of kind of everyone knew but me, I think.
Thank you. That
was a really long answer, wasn't it?
I'm sure those who are listening have never really heard that side of you. I know I have. So everybody out there, it's great. I think another question that I've got here was, if my daughter is being sexually active, and she uses, you know, sexting, so we've got to talk about the online safety part of it. How can we support her in regards to keeping safe? Because again, it's always back to, if the school hear about these things, they're quick to say that we're doing something wrong. So how do we, right now in lockdown, because we know that in September, children are going back to school, they may get it wrong and not realize that it may not be that they're being sexual, it could be very sensory. So how can we support, educate parents, and how can we educate those who are maybe autistic parents who don't know how to engage because of the stigma asking for help? So you've got sex education that can be done wrong. Then you've got social services that are not really engaging properly with parents, especially if they've been diagnosed or undiagnosed. And then you've got, sometimes from my perspective in the Black community in particular, they won't accept autism because they think it's man-made, it's still out there. So different questions in it, but because I know I've heard you speak at the Houses of Commons, and you do keeping safe, in one nutshell, how can we support our young people and young women, or those who are who are questioning their sexuality? Because right now we're scared. A lot of us mothers are scared. Fathers are scared, if their child comes home asking questions that they don't know how to ask.
Yeah. Okay. So I think the first one, I'm just going to take the last bit first to reply backwards if I can. So the issue with perhaps with teachers with social services and the parent being autistic. First of all, if you feel it's safe for you to do so, because it depends who you're dealing with. If you feel that it's safe for you to do so, always say, I am autistic. The way I come across might get misunderstood, because actually the minute that we do that, we get our power back. Otherwise, it's going to constantly be them misunderstanding you, and then you having to kind of apologize for just being a natural self. So it might be a case of putting that straightforward straight away. And that could even be down to things like meetings. You know, if someone was to say to me, someone said to me on a Sunday, Carly, I'll see you next Wednesday, I would turn up in 3 days. Whereas if they said, Carly, I'll see you not this Wednesday, but next Wednesday, I'd turn up on the right Wednesday, jargon like that. But that between friendships, that's just annoying. But in a professional to a parent and professional relationship, or teachers or social services, they might go, oh, well, why did you keep missing his dentist appointments? Or why were you late for our meeting? Why did, you know, and you might go, oh, arrived a week early. You might not say it. So just get it straight out in the open if you feel it's safe to do so, because that will help in that circumstance, hopefully. And if it doesn't help, get hold of Vanessa or me and we'll write an email so it does help. When it comes to sexualization, that's quite tricky, because particularly if you've got a sensory seeker, there might be sensory seeking activities such as rocking, or things like that might be misunderstood as sexual. So and then obviously you're going to have the issue there of if the autistic young person likes to rock as a stim, as a sensory thing, it might be the case that they go, actually, I know this looks a bit odd to other people, so I'm just going to do that in my room. I'm going to do that behind closed doors, if you like. But actually, because a lot of us struggle with understanding the context of the room we're in, you know, so I would quite happily tell a joke that I would say after 3 Prosecco's at 9 o'clock. I'd quite happily tell that joke at work at 9 a.m. because I don't really understand the context of the room, which can be entertaining and disastrous. But I'm learning. So, but you know, I'm 38. So, you know, for young people, understanding the context of the room, why is it different if I rock in this way that might visually look sexualized in a bedroom or at home, as opposed to in the middle of the classroom? So that comes down to context and that there are discussions to be had there. But then, of course, you know, there are teenagers, I was one of them, that are sexually active quite young. There's this massive misunderstanding that, oh, you know, autistic people are all the 40-year-old virgin, you know, and we're all just excited enough for my trains to never look at boys or girls, you know. That's, and you know, and that's, I mean, I work with many autistic teens, but also, you know, teens that aren't autistic are also exploring. That's a teenage thing. But for our young people, if that becomes a special interest, something, the only thing you want to talk about, and the only thing that you're instigating, it might then, you know, alarm bells might be ringing. So they might think, you know, well, what's happening here? And that's bad enough if it was a girl, but imagine that's a boy, and he's just a natural teenage boy who's going around doing what teenage boys do, but it's become his special interest. So not only is he going to talk about that to his mates, he's also going to probably Google all sorts about that. He's probably going to talk to his nan about it. Yes. And then you've got all this to come, Vanessa, with your two.
I'm getting it already.
And then, of course, what happens is, oh, was he a bit of a perv? Is it, you know, but it actually, you know, it's no different to a girl that has a pop star that she likes. I mean, my bedroom was covered in Marco from Take That. Even the ceiling, it was pretty bad. So you might go, oh yes, I like that pop band, I would have a nice one poster up. Oh no, my light switch was covered, you know. So it's like we do everything to the extreme if we're really captured by it. So if people understand that actually this is really natural for teenagers anyway, but it's going to look more, but that doesn't mean that, you know, you've got some sort of predator in the making happening here. That's just normal teenage stuff, but autism seems to amplify the interests. So just frank discussions about that if possible. There's a really good company who I use, it's called What's the Debate, and they're on Twitter as well as just over on a website, and they've got like these cards. There's one about knife crime, there's one about puberty, sex, STDs, everything, and they're really handy because it's not a case of going, sit down, I want to talk to you about sex. It's like, here's a game about sex. It's going to be awkward, but we're going to play it. And your teenage kids can look at you and think, oh, this is horrendous, but actually, at least she's trying to make it fun, you know. And if it's too difficult for the mum or dad to do that for whatever reason, if you've got older siblings, that's really handy. But one good thing about having age gaps, if you've got older children, you can go, your job, you do it, give me 20 quid. I don't want to do it. You know, and just hope that they tell them the right thing. Hence the cards, because it's got all the facts on the back. But yeah, that's a good way around navigating that.
Thank you. I just think that professionals and parents need to be able to talk, because I know my son was very open when he was younger, but I got Mark Brown, Special Help for Special Needs, that supported me with my son.
Yeah.
But again, when it comes to, again, the girls, no help. I know about you. I do know lots of autistic women out there that can support me. But unfortunately, a lot of the local authorities, social services, I don't think they're engaging with the people that can. We've got Robin Stewart as well, when she talks about periods. Again, it's something that we should be able to talk about. My youngest one usually calls it the red. She doesn't like to use that word period. So it's about me having to respect her when she spoke about her, when she first started her period. I mean, I've got a question here, or it's the person that sent the email in. She works in an autistic school, a specialist school, residential, and she's put, sex education is being done, but she feels that trans, bi or gay are swept under the carpet and by the senior leads. I've heard them say that they are too young or they have special needs to do so. So do they really know? This angers them. So basically it's about finding advice, resources, websites, how we can signpost them for young people. Again, I know, like I said earlier, to be told autism affect the Black community.
Oh God, yeah. Don't get me started.
10 years later, I feel like I was 10 years ago. And I use that word, it's like I feel I've been raped again. I know it sounds to say it again, is where you know you've gone through something, and no matter how much you're saying, I need help, and then years down the line, you're hearing, I've heard some of my friends who've said to me, Venessa, I'm lesbian, but they can't tell nobody because of the stigma.
Yeah.
So I've had to always find individuals that can help and support them. So again, when it comes to this question in particular, or advice, I usually go back to the National Autism Society website. I know I go onto Twitter, because Twitter is the place where I get a lot of my information, because there are reliable sources. I'm very careful of everybody who says they can advise, because I've taken advice in the early days, and if I'd listened to them, I would have been on child protection. I'm being very honest. So my advice is, I can't answer all questions, but as a Black mother, I know it's been hard. It's still hard, even though my oldest is 19. But the question that has been answered here, do you know, Carly, any advice to signpost?
Well, signposting, I would, just trying to think, back to the National Autistic Society, I think, because I haven't personally worked with any, I will only ever kind of signpost something if I've personally worked with it, because then I've seen it firsthand. So I would say back to the National Autistic Society. But with regard to them being not old enough or not understanding things such as trans, that blows my mind. My daughter, she could have been maybe, I don't know, 6, and there was a trans woman. So and she said to me, Mum, is that a man wearing a dress? And I said, no, I think it's a woman. And she asked me, she said, well, that woman looks quite a bit like a man. And I said, well, I started speaking about it, and I said, well, actually, you know, some people are born in the wrong body, maybe. And I said, you know that you like wearing Batman at that point, only black things, only Batman. And I was like, yeah. I said, well, actually, I buy all of those clothes from the boys' department. You can't buy the black Batman tracksuits in the girls' bit. So if that, you know, man, who is actually a woman, isn't allowed to wear the dress, then I'm gonna have to go out and buy all the stuff from the pink section, because otherwise it won't be fair. And she was like, oh, you can't do that, you can't, because she didn't like pink, you can't do. And I said, you know what, that's the way the world works. We can just buy clothes from whatever bit we like, and then, you know, had a discussion like, and you know, and I couldn't even remember her saying things like, you know, well, why is the clothes that I like in the boys section? I said, well, it's exactly the same, you know. It's actually, should we really have a boys and a girls section? That's a whole other story. So I don't think that they're, so, you know, too young or they learn difficulties. Yeah, that upsets me, because you can explain things. I think as adults we overcomplicate things. You know, so for example, my cousin who's a male is married to a man, and the first wedding that my youngest child went to was a gay wedding, and you know, that didn't even mention it. It was just like, they love each other and they're in love, and that's it. And she didn't even ask. But as adults we feel like we have to explain things. If people are in love, they're in love, you know. And actually it was a blinking good wedding, and we all had a wonderful time. So she loved it, and it was quite funny. The second time she went to a wedding, and she was like, oh, it's a man and a girl this time. You know, it was the other way around, like, oh, shock. So yeah, I think we just overcomplicate things as adults. Children are very, very accepting. And you know, but I think we could probably learn some lessons from our kids.
Okay, so basically the question that we have to say, as it's better to talk about it than sweep it under the carpet, because what you'll find in the long run is ignoring something will just create disaster. So we look at what we're going through lockdown, the Pandora box is opened, and now everybody now is on talking about racism. And it's sort of, sometimes it's sort of forcing somebody to accept something. So because where they may be racist, they've had to say, no, I'm not a racist, but deep down inside, the trauma, the being misunderstood, being called names because you're expressing yourself. And I think that's what I've picked up now amongst the autistic community, is that many autistic people have become, they've been forced to be something they're not now, because of how cameras have been put on them, and they've been put on the spot. And as again, for me, when it comes to autistic people, I think if you don't give them the platform to speak, you're heading for disaster. And I think that's why we have to be so careful in how we portray raising awareness of autism. As I said, I can't speak for everybody. That's why it's so important to have everybody on the panel that can talk openly. Or if a parent is too scared to ask the question, it's things like webinars or these meetings where you can come and ask us and we'll signpost you. I mean, I know on here, one of the mothers said, I'm lucky that my daughter has been brought understanding about LGBTQ community by herself. She's even questioned me, asking what if she was gay. I told her it wouldn't make any differences to me as long as she is happy. So again, it's parents, people in the community may not agree, but it is about mental well-being, because if you don't get it right, you're going to end up like how I was just now, breaking down, crying, because I'm suppressing a lot of anger that I've had to just use my pain to help people. Because I think if I kept quiet, I would probably be one of those parents in the mental institute, because nobody wanted to listen to me. I got another question. This one is, I'll read it as it is.
Okay.
There is also stigma around self-harm. Yes, I can relate to that. When it came to my son, I was told I was obviously abusing him because he was biting himself. A girl cut herself. She's adopted, and there are definite attachment and trauma issues. She is autistic. The cuts were not deep, but the cutting was taken as an attention-seeking act. And the school wanted to nip it in the bud as they try. Nip it in the bud doesn't mean it's going to go away. It means something else is going to happen. What is your advice for helping girls like, you know, with this? Even if it is a cry for attention, I feel that belittling the act is dangerous. I spoke openly to her about it, as I feel that she should not be made to feel ashamed about her feelings. Again, I can talk about self-harming, injury when it came to my children, because you can hear my grandson now, so I apologize. So I apologise. You're hearing it loud and clear now.
Don't worry. It's
Loud
real
and
life,
clear.
Vanessa. It's real
One minute.
life.
So what I'll just say quickly, the problem that I have is that I was told when they put section 47, and I've read that in my files, you can see that the professionals, when you're saying my child did it themselves, they don't believe. No matter if you have the recording, someone's with their self-harming, then you've been told, why are you recording it? So we need evidence to show that our children are self-harming, but we need to educate about self-harming. Because my grandson is crying, I'll put it on to you, Carly.
Okay.
And I'll be back shortly.
Okay. Bless Vanessa, you're incredible there, multitasking as always. So yes, I have supported a lot of young teens that unfortunately do self-harm. Some are in the family home, and some have had to go into residential settings to keep themselves safe. Kind of been tier forward and things like that. For some of the girls, it is a case that they needed that 24/7 supervision at home, which then led on to 24/7 supervision in hospitals and residential care. Normally at parents saying, we just want the best for our child, so whatever keeps that child safe and alive, they're happy to go for it, although it's heartbreaking for everyone involved. Some of the strategies that we've used in the office for the youth group that I run monthly, we had some jars. We all brought jars in, and then the other girls in the youth group all had strips of paper, and they wrote either something nice about the other person or an activity for them to do, because a lot of the girls have disclosed to me it's not anything that's happening at home that's making them self-harm. It's to do with their own emotions, and I said, well, what makes you feel that you need to do this? And they've just been really honest, and they said sometimes it's if they feel lonely, or that there's a self-esteem type, self-confidence, and sometimes they need a distraction. It's not that they're bored. These girls come from families where parents have given up jobs, and they've got all their hobbies and all of their kind of whatever their interest is in place. These parents are so supportive and hands-on. So it's not, oh, they're bored, but they need a distraction. So in these jars, it was something nice about someone to kind of boost their confidence, and then an activity. And actually these little jars really helped, because the girls, when they felt low and they felt like they wanted to do that, in some cases, obviously sometimes it can get so impulsive, and particularly if the young person's autistic and ADHD as well, it can get so impulsive that something like that won't help. But it did help for a number of the girls, self-esteem wise. We hear about all these sorts of things that, I'm not a self-harm therapist. It's just secondhand knowledge that I've heard from the people that have experienced this, is they've been asked to perhaps draw, get a felt tip and draw on themselves rather than cut themselves. Sometimes that's helped, but it's an area which needs to be dealt with by medical health professionals rather than advocates. I'm just there for the emotional support side of things. But sometimes that does need residential care. But with regards to the parents, and it then being assumed that it wasn't the child, it was the parent, that must just be absolutely heartbreaking for everybody involved. And at that point, people are very, very quick to judge, and people are very, very slow to learn. It's much quicker, isn't it, to look at a family situation and judge it than it is to go, actually, this family has a different dynamic. I need to learn about that and then come back. And that takes a lot longer. So unfortunately, misjudgments happen all the time. It would be good maybe getting hold of an advocate or getting hold of National Autistic Society if it's a young person that's self-harming, who happens to be autistic as well. But I think for autistic people, it's it's a different as well. We have real difficulties in processing our emotions. So what could normally happen is someone might say, oh, well, you know, this traumatic event happened, and then they came home and they inflicted on themselves. And you go, oh, well, I can see why, because that happened. But for autistic young teens and women, it can often be the case that we don't process emotionally a traumatic event or a happy event, but we'll stay on the traumatic side of it, a traumatic event until a week, a month, 2 months, 3 months, a year or more. It's almost as if we're on survival, masking maybe, autopilot at the time, and then we go on to the logistics afterwards, and it takes a long time for us to process this. So of course, whatever you've done then, if it was self-harm or if it was just a very depressed mood, people got to say, oh, well, there's a mood disorder there, because actually that day was great, it was sunshine, and they went out for a picnic and they were with their friends. It's a mood disorder. But actually, what was happening that time last year? Looking into it that way, and you know, unfortunately, we're constantly over medicated because people assume it's some sort of a mood disorder, or if you're happy about something a year later, is then mania. You know, so we're constantly misdiagnosed and over medicated. So that it would be worth having that discussion as well if your young person is struggling with self-harm issues, and try and be the detective and pinpoint actually what was this and what triggered that memory. Yeah.
Thank you. I mean, does anybody want to ask a question? I know that Carly will be coming on the 23rd of July with Sarah Jane Cretchley and Laura Morgan. So there'll be 2 sessions, and then there'll be a Q&A, basically asking questions. So through COVID, I mean, what advice do you think we need to go back to, or not even advice, if we had one wish that we could go back to the clinical commissioning groups and to go back to government and say, what more do they need to do for parents right now who are trying to support their autistic child? Carly?
I think if I had one, there are so many wishes, but if I had one wish, I think what COVID lockdown has done has really highlighted, perhaps to the wider world, the struggles that autistic families have had for decades. Everyone's now experienced what it's like not to be able to go out to work because you have to stay at home and home educate your child. Hopefully that'll bring more compassion. Everyone's now understood what it might be like to have to lead a very rigid routine because it's government imposed rather than imposed by the people that you're supporting and your loved ones. But my biggest hope would be, again, going back to safeguarding, that our children, all children, can be vulnerable online. Our children even more so, particularly if we feel kind of ostracized or left out in society or online forums and XYZ. And then that leaves us very, very vulnerable to, be it county lines, be it people that want to kind of brainwash and radicalise our young people, be that adults that want to groom, child sexual exploitation. That is going to be our kind of our true second wave of all of this. It's then going to be, gosh, we didn't see what was going on. We didn't, and our children are so vulnerable to and even as adults, we can be incredibly vulnerable to people pretending to be our friend.
Yes.
In order to use us, and we're not the common denominators, we're the common scapegoats. We'll always be the one that gets caught. It won't be everyone else, and that really worries me, particularly when it comes to county lines, drugs, grooming, child sex abuse and radicalisation, and you know, we only had that horrible event. I live near Reading, 5 minutes from Reading in Arborfield, and we had that horrible terror event, you know, and you're just thinking, how long was that person left alone for? What were they thinking? Who were they connecting with online? And I'm not, you know, I don't know what their mentality was, or if they had a condition or XYZ, but I'm really worried. I'm really, really worried about our young people who are so easily led and then used as the scapegoat gets caught. I'm really worried about that.
I agree 100%, because again, as I said, my journey has constantly always been, it's my fault. But you know, Carly, how long I've been out before, when you first met my daughter, remember sex education, and she stood in front of 100 people And her response was, she was getting very agitated. She didn't have a diagnosis at the time. She was in year 5. And I remember she stood in front of everybody, and I got a little clip of it. And her response was why she thinks sex education should not be taught the way she learned it. Remember, she's not diagnosed. And she said that it was, what did she say? She remembered the images in her head. Yeah. And the damage, I can say right now at 14, where she was that innocent, very direct, very articulate child, very not street savvy. She was very, I overprotected her to now, once she got into secondary school, and I know Amanda knows my daughter, she became the bully, the troublemaker, the one that is always been isolated, to the point when she was put into pupil referral units. They say it's not, but I could see it was, to becoming a school refuser, because Amanda can vouch for me. We've both been through exactly the same thing. And if I never knew Amanda, I would not have even known what was going on with my daughter. So when you're there trying to ask questions to the authorities to say, my daughter has experienced this, and they say, oh no, well, she's the one that caused it. It took me to when she got that diagnosis in 2018, but it took a year because the pediatrician, what's it called again? Pediatrician, they diagnosed her with ADHD 2017, but it took her a whole year because the person left without finalizing her diagnosis. So that whole year she was left exposed to all sort of things, to where now I'm scared for her, like my older daughter, because no matter what I say, no matter what I do, it's because I'm not cool enough. You hear, as they say, well, my child says that, but when your child has got additional needs, and learning disabilities, autism, severe receptive expressive language, PDA, because we've not talked about PDA, there's so many hidden disabilities amongst our young people, and I feel, I always say I feel I've been failed, but if I never took this journey, I don't think I would be where I am right now. I don't think I would have known, I would have never met you. But as you said, when you saw my daughter stand in front of all those people, that was the evidence to show how I was getting it right, because she was going on healthy relationship programs. And it shows, no matter how much, this is my message to any parent out there, no matter how much you think you can protect your child, if they're put amongst individuals who do not believe what autism is, your child will become damaged. And I use that word damaged because their mind has become distorted. And no matter what you say, they're saying that you are the problem. Why it's so important that we all have to come up and speak. Because when I listen to my daughter, where she'll be in front of the camera and she'll be very articulate, she's now refusing to come on camera now because she's not interested. But that she's interested, her interest now has gone into the gaming. It's gone into the Snapchat. It's gone into, like my older daughter, she emulates, she copies everything that is out there now on social media. So I'm going to be very open. In the Black community in particular, beating, disciplining how our children doesn't work the way you think it is. I'll say openly, because everything I was told I was doing wrong, I changed my parenting skills to help. That once she got back out into the wider world, and you got families who, like my daughter said, I'm told I'm mentally ill, mummy. Or they would turn around and say, mummy, I'd be told there's nothing wrong with me. Then you got my son saying to me the other day when he was on game, but you look normal. So when you've got our own children saying, we look normal, what does that say about our parenting skills? So we are fighting a system where we're being told that we're not good enough. We need to go into parenting workshops. So what about the single father, the absent fathers, the families that are not supporting our children? But then when they take our children, they're feeding them so much negativity that it's hard for us to raise our children. So I think during lockdown, I can turn around and say, I had to reevaluate myself. I had to look at myself, and it made me realize that the government have failed our children, my children, the yesteryear children, the next generation, because they wouldn't listen to us. And I think right now, we just need to start being more open, and we should be able to delegate. As much as, yes, I'm a Black mother, I've helped everybody that has come to me. But like I've always said, I'm being open. I can't even help my own children. because the facilities are not there. I've had to always go to the autistic person, the autistic mother, to say, can you help me? Because the community are not listening. But when we talk about being Black and autistic, my journey has been a different battle, because I've had to keep an eye on me, mask, and pretend that my children are okay. People say they think I'm autistic. That's a question mark in itself. But I know at the end of the day, it's not going to stop me from doing what I'm doing. The label is important because I feel that what it's done for my children, it has able to get the help I needed. But even having that diagnosis doesn't make no difference, because we're still fighting a battle. Especially if your child is in a mainstream school without any support, and you're thinking that your child is going to grow out of autism because they're doing academically well, please, please, please think about, once they get into secondary school and they get into college, who's going to be there? Because what I found out now, and I'm being very open, 16, it's like you've got to ask for permission to a certain extent for your child's rights. Then they turn 19, you've been told, oh, well, they're 19, they've got their rights. So even though we know that our children are suffering, struggling in college, you've been told, well, it's like they have to fail before they get the support. We need prevention. We need to make sure we avoid our children going into mental institutes. And I'm being very honest, because I know, like yesterday I called, I'm really, really upset, because I'm saying I need help for my daughter, for my 19-year-old to say to me she doesn't need no help. And she does need help, because I need the help for my son. So if I'm a mother in her 50s,
looking good,
and
Vanessa.
So I'm thinking for myself, what happened to my, you know, what's happening to a lot of our children is that when they go into college, they're exposed to also, well, primary school, they're protected. But then when they've been denied the support, they start putting parenting courses in. It's the exclusions. I look at my daughter, she went part-time pupil referral unit when she got into year 6. If not, she would have got kicked out of school. Then she gets into year 7. Then she gets diagnosed now with severe receptive expressive language from the school. Then she got autism. Then a couple of months later, she got epilepsy. So imagine my daughter in primary school was failed all through primary. And then she's now at home. I mean, she's sleeping now. She stays up all night. So again, I know we're running out of time now. So like my daughter, she sleeps all day and up all night. Then I've been told I've spoilt her. But then how can you say that? You need to engage with autistic people. So my message to the government, my message to the Department of Work and Pension, to social services, to local authorities, to children's centres, everywhere need to understand you can't keep on assuming that you have to have a go. You can't with our children, because once the damage is done, it's hard to unpick.
Yeah.
And I feel that's why I was very traumatized, as I said this morning, because when I delivered my grandson, I didn't get that help. You know, my daughter went to the hospital. I had to deliver her in the hallway with my friend, because they said NHS said they couldn't come home. They don't pick up. They don't bring ambulance for a pregnant person. My daughter didn't know she was having contractions, so I had to keep an eye on my daughter. I thought she was going to die on me. No one's come back and said, Vanessa, do you need help? So for me, right now, for any parent out there whose child does get pregnant at a young age, please don't just say put them to social services. They don't understand. Because if they don't understand about autism, and you are a mother that's experienced domestic violence or sexual abuse, they're quick to still look at you as the parent. So we all need to be very open. If you know that you've experienced sexual abuse, or going through domestic abuse, or you suspect somebody's going through domestic abuse, or you've got an autistic person who's experiencing abuse, please, please, please signpost them, because I know first-hand experience what it feels like to be told I'm lying. So Carly, as I said, I know I could be very open if I want to be, as you know, but I feel I had to just say it, because as I said, I mean, on here we've got one of the delegates has come. Part of what all services providers, medical staff, teachers, etc., need to understand is that autism disposes their autonomic nervous system to be in a more stressed state than most people, other than those with PTSD. and to not just tip over into hyper-stress state, leading to meltdowns, shutdowns, and coping strategies that may be harmful in some cases. So anybody who's listening to this podcast, because obviously we're going to be sent out as an audio file, we need to make sure that we're listening. If you're not listening, believe me, the mental state, the CAMs are going to have crisis on their hands, because nobody is being honest enough to say that autism needs to be in the forefront. Can't keep pushing it under the carpet now, because when it comes to our young people, our adults, even the elderly, because we've not talked about the elderly, they're being penalised for lashing out. If you've got dementia, the question is, do they have autism as well? We can't keep on saying everything is just bad behaviour, or old person is lashing out because it's part of their dementia. Are they having sensory overload because you've touched them? Have you gone into their face and they don't want you to be in their space? These are the things that we need to tell the government. We need to listen. Alexandra's come back again, and I like this, and it's another one. And number 2, the social engagement system. I don't know if I'm saying this right. I'm liking this. Carneo nerves that are closely linked to autonomic nervous system is not automatically hooked up when the person is in a relaxed state, the way it is in neurotypical, which means the face and voice will not necessarily reflect what the person is feeling physically and emotionally. Thank you, Alexandra. Maybe we, as I said, join us on the 23rd of July. Send through your emails if you're happy to join, because as I said, we need to start talking on this now, because this can't just stop now. Because as I said, you're seeing how I'm feeling in my years of age. And I can turn around and say that I'm not going to give up, as much as I always want to give up.
Don't. We need you. Is that selfish, Venessa?
Seriously.
You need you.
I'm feeling tired. I'm really, really feeling tired, because I feel that my energy has come to the point where, why is it nobody's listening? I always say to everybody, and I'm being honest, I'm not saying it's because I'm black. I feel that people have got an issue with me because they feel that, oh, she's going on again. But do I have to just bear it all and just speak openly and say, look, I have gone through some of these journeys because I'm a living example. I'm a walking example. I've been through it all. I've been through the domestic abuse. I've been through childhood sexual abuse, childhood trauma. I've been told, don't air my dirty linen in public. Why not? Because if Oprah Winfrey can do it, why can't I? If Whoopi Goldberg can do it, why can't I? So I can't see why I should sit down, keep quiet, where I've been doing all this voluntarily, finding funding, getting sponsors to support me. I've got Carly at times say, Venessa, don't need to pay me, because this is something that we need. Every speaker that has come on to support me is because they know that voices need to be heard. And right now in lockdown, people don't realize people are not getting paid. Speakers that are coming on that do need to be paid. And to me, when we see, GoFundMe that are supporting organizations and they're not doing justice, we need to make sure that we're supporting the cause, because families right now, I want to know in the 6 weeks holiday that when I have these Zooms, I'll get Carly to come back on, and I know that we can do goodie bags that we can send out to families, and that will pay for post and package, because material is expensive. Doing the Zooms, we've got to pay for Zoom to make sure that we can actually outreach to the community. We've gone as far as Australia, we've gone to Africa, we've gone to America. We are very international, and I'm about outreaching to everybody because that's what I'm about. So I'm just saying, thanking everybody for joining us. Please email me with anything. You see my buzz is going, so that means that my daughter, instead of her cooking, she decided to get Uber, and I'm going to get some plug-in Uber. Uber's obviously got anyway, but I'm not opening it. So as I said, Carly, any last words you like to give to anybody while I go on to mute?
I just wanted to thank you, Venessa, for everything you've been doing for everyone else, despite having so many hurdles yourself, and sincere love to you, Venessa, and thank you for everyone for joining in and listening to me ramble on. I hope some of it's been of use, but I think actually the main part of today is the fact that Venessa set the tone perfectly. It was staying real, not worrying about what was being said, but worrying about how how people felt, and I think it's been a really good Q&A, in the fact that we've all felt less isolated. So thank you, Venessa.
Thank you. Thank you. As I said, thank you everybody for joining us, and all the comments that have been here. If everybody's okay, I'll put it as anonymous if you don't want to put your name. So thank you everybody. And as I said, I'm not going to apologize for feeling sad, because that is how I've always been feeling. And I'm being honest, I'm always feeling like this. But you know what really makes me feel to continue is by doing what I do, and somebody saying, Venessa, thank you for helping. So thank you everybody, and we'll hopefully hear you on the 23rd of July. Bye.
Everyone, bye.